Hello and welcome back to the Perception Podcast, where we just see things a little bit differently. I'm Dan, your host, and today really I just wanted to give a bit of a check-in after my first week of exams and kind of let you guys know how I've been kind of dealing with it and how it's been going really. So this week, first I had my philosophy of religion paper and then my UK politics test. Now these two papers were two completely different experiences for me. The first didn't go quite as well. It was a bit, not that I personally had a bad experience of it. It wasn't necessarily a bad paper. It was just something that happened during the exam. But I think then that gave me kind of the I don't want to say experience, but just the kind of awareness of what could happen that kind of led into the next exam quite nicely, because then I was preparing for the worst kind of thing, and I knew that if that did happen, I'd be a bit more prepared for it. And just ready for it to happen, so that it didn't come as a shock like it did the first time. So I just think the second test being a bit shorter as well, I think that played into it a bit nicer, and overall that was just a lot of a calmer experience for me. I was writing the whole time, so I didn't really think about things too much, like my anxiety and stuff didn't really have a chance to get on top of me. But yeah, as I say, the first paper did not set me off in a good stride at all. So I think the first one was actually the UK politics one, because I think my IRS tests, all three of them are actually 1 hour long, which I do prefer a lot more, because as I say, you kind of find that you're right the whole time. You don't really have time to think too much and kind of get on top of yourself. And that's a real problem for me during exams on my own, without external things happening that are out of my control. But as I say, just during the exam, some of the time, if it's a long test maybe and I finish maybe 20 minutes before, with me having extra time and stuff like that, I immediately start thinking, have I added enough? Have I talked about the right things? Because if I'm stopping before other people that normally write a lot faster than me, something must be wrong here. And some of the time that's obviously true, some of the time that's just going to be normal. Maybe I haven't done too well on the test, but a lot of the time it's just unwarranted self-criticism that I've kind of got to try and adapt in a different way. I don't know how to best describe that, but I've kind of got to change that mindset on its head and not think, oh, I finished early, that's automatically a bad thing. I've got to think of all the possibilities is what I'm trying to get out there really, and it's just my brain always seems to switch straight towards a bad negative perspective when there could be two different sides of the story, if you kind of get what I'm saying there. I think the best way to kind of put it is that I've always considered myself a very much a glass half empty person, and why is it empty and stuff like that, and going into further detail and stuff like that, whereas I should just accept that there's at least some liquid in the glass in the first place and I should drink that and be happy. I know this is a weird analogy now, but be proud of myself for doing that. I think especially with tests, I need to be proud that I've got past the initial anxiety of actually sitting in the first place, and I've actually sat and managed to complete the test at all, even if I've completely flunked it, if I've got an F, even if I've got a U, and I've never got a U, but even if I got an F or a U, I've never got an F either. Luckily for me, because I think that would drive me insane. But even though I've never got them grades, the constant fear of the unknown, of possibly getting them because I've misunderstood the question and waffled about something completely different, is just always there. And I think I kind of have to be just, especially when I've just finished the exam, obviously you got to worry afterwards. Anybody worries afterwards because you don't get a result straight away, but straight after the exam I should just be happy that I've done it to the best of my ability, and I've written a lot, and just kind of read through it rather than getting on top of myself straight away, because I feel like that time can also be greatly used to kind of reread your work, check that it all makes sense. And I think especially for somebody, as you can tell through these podcasts, that it kind of feels like if you ask me a question or I'm trying to think about something, I have to be very, very focused to stay on topic. Otherwise it just feels like my brain sets off a neuron and it bounces all over the place trying to find the right file in the cabinet. So that happens a lot in tests as well, especially because I'm a bit more flustered. I think the time at the end, and I haven't really used it properly before, but that could definitely help me out, just collecting my thoughts in a concise way that kind of actually makes sense, and I feel like rereading my writing can help that sometimes. So yeah, if that already anxiety that anybody really gets in exam wasn't bad enough, we had to sit our year 12 mocks, which obviously, as I've said multiple times on here, obviously going to universities I'm going to be wanting to send that to top places that I really respect. So I'm really like pressuring myself to do well in these, or at least like setting a high standard for myself, which can be both a good and bad thing, depending on what way you want to kind of take that and think about it. But we, for some weird reason, and I know that obviously schools don't revolve around one year group and they've got to fit tests in when they can, and that it's like every year there's so many things to fit in and stuff like that. I get that. Coming from the kid of a teacher, even in a primary school setting like my mum is, I know the stress of an examination series that it can have on the staff and how difficult it can be to plan and kind of administer. But at the same time, I really don't think it's a good idea to have year 12 mocks, even though there's so few of us, because they do separate the kids that kind of have extra time and stuff like that, and problems with anxiety, which I do think is good, like in a separate room, so they're not in the hustle and bustle of the whole hall, which can be really distracting sometimes for people with additional needs. But anyway, I'm kind of getting off topic, as I was saying before. So they kind of put us in there with the year 10s also doing their mocks. I guess you have to call them mocks. It was basically just end of year tests that, if you've ever been to school in the UK, you'll know what they are. They're just at the end of the year, they just want something to kind of see how you progress and stuff like that. But a lot of these kids being in year 10, obviously when I was in year 10, I even though it's only been 2 years, I had nowhere near the same focus or work ethic or drive to do well or anything like that, because I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. It's only just now that I'm kind of starting to try and figure that out a bit more. So I don't have a problem with them at all. I think it was more the planning side of it. But one of the year 10s wanted to leave early because they had extra time and they were already finished and they didn't want to sit it. But I thought it'd be a great idea to kind of, I don't want to say throw a tantrum because that seems a little bit insensitive, but like we're definitely set off and aggravated by the fact that the examiner wouldn't let them out. And I felt so sorry for him because he was this lovely old bloke. That obviously you could tell it was one of his first times, like, kind of being an invigilator, and he didn't know where to stand. He didn't know if we were going to be like the rowdy teenagers that were hard to control or anything like that. So I tried to be as nice with him as possible. I tried to be fair with him and just let him know that he's not going to get any grief off me, like maybe the other kids, but just kind of let him know that not every kid's bad, do you know what I mean? Or at least we don't try to be all the time, because you could just tell, and you do get that sense, especially from older people, that they're a bit wary with teenagers. So I tried to be a bit more sensitive to him in that sense. But this kid obviously didn't see that as well, I guess, as I did. Not trying to. That sounded really weird, like I was trying to big myself up, but maybe they just didn't think about that, or they kind of didn't care in the moment, I guess. They kind of really went off on this old invigilator, like it was his fault that he was trying to follow the rules and stuff like that. But anyway, after a long confrontation, in the middle of exam, by the way, they ended up leaving, along with a few others. They got reported and stuff like that. That was all sorted, that was all good, but it was more the fact that not only me, but also another year 12 who was sitting there mocks, and obviously the rest of the year 10 cohort who had additional time and also had additional needs as well, where they were put in that room to stop stuff like that from happening, because it can severely affect their ability to form in the mocks more than their additional needs already do. I think an event like that happening can completely set off, especially somebody with maybe an autistic mindset who's very focused or something like that, maybe on the test. That can completely throw them off, because then they'll become focused on that and maybe start worrying about that. And then what might be a 5-minute event might take half an hour out of their hour and a quarter exam. So yeah, I think it might seem like a little thing, but it actually could be blown up in certain people's heads into a much larger thing that I don't think was quite dealt with properly. And this is mainly because it was such an important exam for me. I don't know about the year 10s, they might have placed extra importance on it themselves. I'm not in their shoes, so I don't know. But this was such an important exam for me, and you can kind of tell, even though I've calmed down a lot since then, it's been nearly a week since then, you can still see I'm a bit aggravated and frustrated by it in a way, but not necessarily with the person, just the way the situation was handled, because I've spoken with my teacher that's actually marking the test since then, and obviously a lot of people are going to ask it about the exam. You don't want to sit with every person moaning about this event and stuff like that, kind of going through the whole 10-minute story just to kind of let them know to 50 different adults. So when my teacher who's marking the test was like, was the test right? I was just like, yeah. Like I do with almost any question anybody asks me in school, because that's just often a lot easier to get through a conversation rather than get into a 30 minute or hour long debate that you want to have about like the monarchy or something like that, which can often happen in a high school. It's very, very weird. So a lot of the time I end up just nodding my head or shaking my head and just like walking straight on, because I don't like getting involved in, because I'm very socially awkward. I kind of get out of conversations at the nearest opportunity. But anyway, my teacher kind of asked me about the exam, and I said, yeah, it's fine. And it was very clear from them that they had no idea that anything had happened. And the sense that I got after, like, even though it seemed like such a small thing, even to me, who's that bit older and should be able to deal with it maybe a bit better, that really frustrated me in the moment. I was actually really angry, and I was telling teachers and stuff like that. And they said that like considerations would be made and the teacher would be told and everything like that. But then it really surprised me when I went to my teacher, and they seemed like none the wiser of what had happened. So I just kind of wanted to come in here and kind of say the same thing that I was kind of talking about the other day. Really, it's that these obviously special considerations have been made to kind of help us and kind of balance the disparity that our additional needs kind of cause to us in exam periods. It's like, I know one girl in my year seems like the perfectly typical kid, popular girl, everything like that. But her anxiety takes over her so much during exams that she needs additional support, where normally she would just be one of the crowd. Do you know what I mean? One of the many popular kids in our school. So it's just like, you don't know always the ways in which exams can affect somebody. It obviously can be exacerbated by additional needs, but also somebody can just really struggle with tests in particular. And I really sympathise with anybody that struggles with exams, because I know how difficult it is for me myself. So anyway, the way in which these sort of special rooms and kind of extra time is supposed to close that gap between us and the typical kids, I feel like at like events like these and like just stuff like that in such a short space of time, because even though it seems like my exam was 2.5 hours long with extra time, when you're trying to answer 3 essay questions in that time, and you're trying to think of what to write, you're trying to plan what to write, maybe you have a toilet break, stuff like that, and maybe there's times when your brain's just freaking out over questions and stuff like that. Having a kid basically, I don't want to say throw a tantrum, just have a disagreement with a teacher in the middle of the exam and not be very quiet at all, that can cause you to throw off that whole exam. Be off that whole exam. And as I say, what was a 5-minute discussion that would have been normal in any other part of the school during an exam can then cause me, who's actually had a lot of experience with exam interruption and disruption, cause me to like take about half an hour off a 2 and a half exam, and maybe not write as much or as well as I possibly could without that happening. So I think events such as that, and maybe that seem just as simple as that, even to me, who's had a lot of not proper exams, but definitely a lot of mock exams. I've been through this process a lot of times now, primary school and secondary school. I'm definitely more used to it than the younger kids, and it's affected me such a lot, even that little event, that it's kind of stuck with me a week later. So I think it's really unfair to the kids that maybe don't deal with it as well, or even younger and don't have the same experience as an older kid would. So even though the kind of situation has been sorted, and I said it's not like a massive thing, I think stuff like this is often brushed off because the people dealing with it don't quite understand what it's like to be affected in such a way that maybe kids with additional needs would be. And it's not like I expect them to completely understand what we're going through at all, because that's unrealistic. Nobody's going to completely understand somebody else's perspective on things, let alone an atypical perspective on things. But I definitely think more should be done to kind of compromise on the situation and it not just be shrugged off because they think it's a little thing. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that's the right kind of solution to that problem, because even though they don't see it as a problem, it can be a big problem to others. And yeah, I just don't think it's right then to just kind of see it, like put it in a box when it's kind of already exploded out of the box in a lot of kids' mind from that situation. I don't know if I've explained that right, but hopefully you kind of get what I mean. I do have to kind of say though here, definitely, that the actual kid that did it did come to us afterwards and apologise to us, did write notes to us, as is a custom if you do something bad, you write notes to people. I'm not trying to suggest that they did that off their own accord, and I don't blame them for not wanting to do that off their own accord, but as I say, I don't really blame them for it happening, because obviously they have additional needs to be in the class anyway, and obviously in the moment I was a lot less sympathetic towards them. But kind of thinking about it now and thinking about maybe how I would have reacted to the same situation at a younger age, maybe with it being their first exam and the anxiety kind of overwhelming them, I can clearly see how, even though that might seem like a little thing to other people, how that might have even set me off in the past. Maybe not at school, but definitely more in a setting that I felt more relaxed. So definitely looking back at the situation now, I'm a lot more sympathetic to the actual person. And as I'm kind of saying, my grievances more kind of lie with how the situation was held, not with their apology or anything like that. Just the way that it was kind of resolved, and the fact now that my teacher will be giving me a grade that will form part of my government and politics overall AS grade that I'll have to send to universities, and a large portion of that exam I was focused on another thing. I don't necessarily think that's fair when my exam anxiety and possible autism and all stuff like that has already had a detrimental effect on the outcome as it is, and my perception of the questions and stuff like that as well. So it's like, I just think where schools should be doing, not just me, and I know it's not just me, I'm kind of sharing my experiences so that maybe other people can assimilate to it and relate to it really. And yeah, I'm just kind of, I can only really share my experiences on the situation, but from my perspective anyway, I just really don't think it's fair that we're the ones who already are struggling and having to make compromises when we're already at a disadvantage. I feel like the people in charge, the people that can actually make change, even on a small level, it doesn't have to be big national law reform or anything like that. Just within the school that I'm in, if somebody has a problem, I just, as I'm saying, I don't think it should be marginalised, and I definitely feel like that's kind of what's happened with this anyway, because as I say, I don't even think my teacher was aware of the situation, and haven't got my grade back obviously yet, but I do think that will have a bigger impact than possibly people that wouldn't understand the situation from additional needs perspective would anticipate. I think it will definitely have could, I won't say will, because I might come out and get an A, you never know, but definitely in my mind at the minute I'm anticipating maybe getting a much lower grade than I thought maybe I was going to get at the start. And that's due to a number of reasons really. That's trying to remember information when your brain's focused on another thing, and anybody that kind of has that weird fixation on anything that happens around you, it's kind of like you're trying to focus on one thing, but any little thing that happens around you, your brain just ultimately diverts to that because it knows that what you're currently doing at the minute is a challenge, and it much more wants to kind of get involved in the thing that might cause more intrigue or more pleasure or something like that. I don't know what it is with my kind of brain or that kind of autistic kind of, I don't know, reaction, that it just kind of goes in the face of a challenge. It kind of gets infatuated on anything else or fixated on anything else possible. So me trying to remember critical information, and obviously UK politics is quite a diverse subject that you have to remember a lot of key thinkers, little bits here and there, and trying to remember that while somebody's literally having a verbal confrontation and argument with an old invigilator, it's not really the best environment to kind of do that and perform to the best of your abilities. In situations like these though, where my brain can often blow them out of proportion, where they can start at such a little starting point and kind of like the Big Bang just explode into all these different possibilities and worries in my mind, I kind of have to remember, as I have done for this week, kind of trying to be more sympathetic to the person and the situation in general. I've kind of got to put myself in other people's shoes, as I have kind of thinking like, how would I have reacted to that situation, and always remember that not everybody is perfect and not everybody would exactly react to it and is thinking about the exams in the same way as I am. Like, I'm thinking about these exams, they have the potential to possibly change the outcome of the next 5 years for me, whereas these year 10s are probably thinking, I just need to get through these tests, maybe pass them, and I'm good. Do you know what I mean? So it's just different. It comes down to different perspectives, I think, at the end of the day. And a lot of the time I worry straight away, as I say, after the exam, like any little thing that happens within it, whether it's the invigilators making a noise, they don't even know they're making a noise, maybe they're whispering or something like that, but my ears just pick up on it and become fixated on it for some reason, and I get really angry with them while I'm doing the test. But they don't know that they're doing anything wrong. They're not doing anything wrong. It just so happens that I've picked up on it, and therefore I get angry because they're negatively affecting me, but they don't know they're doing that. And if they did, I can't imagine that they would purposely do that. So I've kind of just got to remember to put myself in other people's shoes whenever possible, because I think that will help with what I constantly describe as kind of like my distorted perspective. Not necessarily in a bad way, but I've just kind of got to remember that at any opportunity I've kind of got to balance it out against others and see where my brain might have skewed my interpretation of things in a not so good light, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. And with the Euros being on at the minute, and me kind of back in Wales, I know that I will annoy a lot of people because obviously I live in England, but a lot of my family's actually from Wales, and I always love rooting for the underdog, and I've always thought English football is a bit boring, and I can't really back a team that's run by Gareth Southgate. So yeah, I'm definitely backing Wales all the way, and with them getting a point against Switzerland the other day, I celebrated that so much. And I've just got to remember that obviously England are looking to win. Obviously the fans at home are going, maybe we can actually win this tournament. Whereas for Wales, if they manage to get through the group stage, that would be an absolute miracle for them. Like getting to the semi-final was in Euro 2016 when Bale was on top form. But yeah, I've just got to remember that the little victories, although sometimes can be quite like minuscule to you, you've got to take pride in them and actually think that was actually an accomplishment, that was an achievement. And I think even to get through these first two exams and not be completely stressed out my eyeballs like I thought I might be at this point, and now going into the next week where I've got the most exams out of the whole series, I'm not as worried or anxious as I thought, or stressed even as I thought I might be. And I think I've got to take more stock in that and think this situation actually could be a lot worse. I could be having panic attacks every day and stuff like that. So yeah, take a bit of pride in that, take a bit of I don't know, accept that you are possibly changing for the better and stuff like that, and just not be so negative all the time really. But the second test, philosophy of religion, obviously did go a lot better. As I say, that was a much shorter exam. I was expecting the worst, which meant that anything better than what happened the first time was always going to be a plus for me. And obviously that was unlikely to happen again, so it was a lot more smooth. The invigilator is really nice. I had different invigilators, and it was just a nice little hour. I didn't have to leave school early because it was within school time, and that was an overall nicer day. And it's actually set me up quite nicely for this week, as I say, where I've got quite a hectic week with exams. I've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday full of exams, 2 on Thursday with a 3-hour 45 English exam, so I can't say I'm particularly looking forward to that. I've been a bit of a muppet with not maybe revising as much as I should be, but then I'm cramming when I get to school, and hopefully that'll help me out. As I say, I'm kind of getting used to revision because I've never really done it throughout my whole school. I've kind of, any test that I have done, I've kind of done it off the knowledge that was already there in my head at the time of doing it. But yeah, so I'm definitely trying to get more used to revising and stuff like that. But I definitely say so far it's going better than I had expected, and I think just the overall goal of this episode is just to kind of show people that maybe down the line, maybe even one person listens to this and goes, if they're having trouble with exams and stuff like that, that not everybody has a perfect experience with them. I know typical people, I don't want to say normal people, that really struggle with exams, that perhaps have next to no additional needs and stuff like that, so it can affect all people in different ways. And I just want to kind of show people that wherever possible, that I'm not perfect in any way, and nobody is perfect in any way, and how I've been having difficulties with these exams and this series, but how also I'm trying to get through it and finding ways to get through it and finding ways to like kind of continuously change and improve. But I think that's all for this week. As I say, it was just kind of a little check-in while all this hectic period's going on. Wish me luck for next week if you could, because as I was last week, I'm kind of, this is the night before I go into my first exam this week, and yeah, the nerves are starting to kick in a little bit, so I would appreciate all the luck I can get at the minute. But if you're listening to this episode, and obviously you are, if you're listening to me saying, if you're listening, God, what is my head doing at 1 a.m. in the morning on a Tuesday? If you are listening, I went off on a tangent there. I didn't even know where my brain was going. Stream and download as always. But yeah, I think that's all for me for now. Hope you're having a good week. Hope you're feeling good and everything's good in your life. You'll hopefully hear from me very, very soon. Hopefully next week. And hopefully I'm alive at that point. Hopefully I'm healthy and all good and well, and I haven't had to be sent to the hospital with a panic attack or fainting mid-exam. That's a worry in my head at the moment. But anyway, I won't bore you with all that. Have a good week. Yeah, you'll hopefully hear from me very, very soon, and bye.